Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of our month-long special this October on Goosebumps. The first thing we're going to be doing is the first 20-something days or so, we're going to be talking about all the original run of books. Going in order, giving our own little reviews. We both have reread them for the first time since we were kids, pretty much, like little kids, and giving our take now, giving them a little bit of rating, comparison, talking about them. And this time we're going to go over 1, 2, and 3, the first 3 volumes of the classic Goosebumps series from the 90s, and join us all month long for all kinds of Goosebumps stuff, going through the books, going through the TV series, some video games, everything you can think of. So a whole month devoted to Goosebumps, episode 1. We've actually just finished reading these today, and we'll give our takes on the first one, Welcome to Dead House, the beginning of the Goosebumps series. And you have the first run there cover, and this is a later reprint cover of the same thing. And you can see how much better the original one is.
Much better.
And it's not just nostalgia, like just look at the colors and things, I think will look better.
Look at the colors.
Yeah, so it just looks a little bit like
and the
more
texture.
Yeah, look, and this looks more just like, I don't know, almost like cartoony. Like it doesn't fit right, like the color of purple. But anyway, talking about the actual book, it's about Amanda and Josh think the old house they've just moved into is weird, spooky, possibly haunted. And the town of Dark Falls is pretty strange too, but their parents don't believe them. You'll get used to it, they say. Go out and make some new friends. So Amanda and Josh do, but these creepy new friends are not exactly what their parents had in mind, because they want to be friends forever. Come play with us. So what did you think of this initial Goosebumps book, the first outing?
Well, I liked that her name was Amanda.
Of course, it's the
90s.
90s. That's like one of every 3 girls.
But none of them were named after Mr. Spock's mommy.
Yes, you were named
I was
for
the
Spock's
only
mommy.
one. Was anyone else named after her? But I really liked it. I liked it more than you did, actually.
Yes, yeah. This
weird.
one, we also did a rating system out of 10, just a general thing to see how much we liked it. And you gave this one, what did you give out of 10?
I gave a 7.
And I gave it a 6 out of 10. I thought it was weaker, one of the weaker ones so far that we've gotten into these first 3. I thought it was a good first book overall. I thought it was very enjoyable. I do like the ending. Without spoiling it, it has sort of an open-ended, like, is she or isn't she kind of ending, which I kind of liked because that's a little bit unusual for something for this age demographic.
Yes.
I think it's that's something. A lot of the elements to it weren't particularly astounding or original, but they were for the age demographic, I think, and that's what That's what I think makes it work pretty well. Like putting some of those elements into a story based for children was one of the better parts of it. Overall, I found it interesting, but it was kind of it had a creepy ghost story vibe to it that was a little more like campfire-y, which wasn't necessarily negative. It wasn't a negative, but to me there was nothing truly outstanding or tongue-in-cheek goofy or like outright horrifying. There was just it was a little more tame.
There were many horrifying things.
But it still felt it felt a little more tame, and it wasn't like he hadn't let his creativity be unleashed yet. You know what I mean? Like, especially thinking about some later ones going on.
But
we haven't reread them all yet, but like just going from it felt like something that could have. It didn't have quite that Goosebumps iconic vibe to me yet. I felt like he was getting into it, and it was starting, and it was good, but it wasn't quite iconic yet. Like to me, it just had like it was a good kids book, good like kids horror book, but it wasn't anything spectacular in my opinion.
It had Indiana Jones.
The face melting.
Oh my gosh. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
And it was horrifying. It was horrifying. There were some horrifying parts.
I don't know,
and
to me it just didn't feel that way.
The puppy? They better get a new puppy. They better get a new puppy. Have you read this book?
What do you think of the first one? We actually disagree on the first 2. Third one we're pretty much, I think, fairly unanimous in our opinions. But the first 2 we disagree on a little bit. But yeah, this first one I think was just, I don't know, just didn't have that iconic. It wasn't amazing. It was good, but
it wasn't amazing, but it was great.
But I thought, and you disagree with me, I thought the second one, Stay Out of the Basement, was much better to me. Between the 2, this is the first time it really gives more of an iconic Goosebumps vibe. To me, this feels more definitely Goosebumps, not just like kids horror. Like it feels like definitely Goosebumps to me. This is the first one. I know. I like it, and it feels to me like it has a little bit of that tongue-in-cheekness to it in some essences. And the difference too between this and Welcome to Dead House, I think this one had more like building tension overall versus Welcome to Dead House. I think it was more I don't know. I thought it was very obvious, and not just. I mean, I'm trying to speak to it as not just like an adult reading kids book, but talk about it for kids in that context. I think there's more mounting tension and more mystery. I think to stay out of the basement in a way. I feel like I don't know.
I think this one lends itself more to the TV show in a way that
it
the
does.
first
Yeah.
one did not.
Yes,
when I think
that would
of
be
this
more-
one,
yeah.
I think of the episode.
The episode? Yeah.
I think of the episode.
Mhm.
I don't think of the book. And
I think
I like
equally.
Goosebumps. No, I like
I think
Goosebumps
of it-
better for the books, and I
Yes.
think this one translates better on
On
screen.
screen, yeah.
Whereas some of the other ones do not. But
Yes.
this one is like a good
Yeah.
episode for screen.
Yeah. To me, though, like the first one started on a certain level of just like frightening and didn't really escalate too much. Like it got more
It
like you know what I mean.
totally escalated.
I don't know. To me, the terror level, the events escalated, but the level of fear didn't escalate. But
I don't
this,
know
I
what
think.
you were reading.
No,
but it
I
was
totally
pretty
agree. I
terrifying.
think Stay Out of the Basement definitely had more of an increase, and I do like too. I like this one. The one
No.
thing I like is it has more of a sci-fi element to it,
Well,
and I like that. Like I like the ones that
I think it's a little
that
shop
do
of
that.
horrors.
It is very much
It's
a little. It's,
Audrey
it
too.
is, yeah.
And the first time I read this, I remember reading this, and I remember Little Shop of Horrors
Yeah.
coming like through my head the whole time I was reading this.
My one big complaint was I don't like when they do the cliche like,
Yeah.
no, I'm your real father. No, I'm your real father. Like
Even
the
as a
two people look
child,
the
that
same.
was
Yeah,
cliche.
even as a
Like,
child, like
you're like,
that's my one thing. I do
stop
think
it.
the ending's a little weak. Like building up to it, it's fantastic, but I think the last little part is a little weak.
I like the flower, like the very last.
The flower at the
very
end,
last
that's a little shop of horrors.
That's
I think,
why
in
I'm
a way,
flower,
so you see it as a negative. To me, I see it as there are elements of this one that's a little bit of an homage, I think, in some ways, like the little flower at the end. Like, you know, because at the end of the movie, the little flower, you know, the one that's still alive. And that it reminded me of that. So, I don't know, I gave that one an 8 out of 10.
I don't know. I can't get past Little Shop of Horrors. Like
What'd you
even
give it?
the first time I read this, I gave this a 6.
Yeah, so this is where it was different. But I think we both gave the next one same, didn't we? Yeah, you gave it an
We
8.
did.
We both gave it an 8 out of 10. The first, Monster Blood, one of the long-running
Yeah.
series within the Goosebumps series.
But I think that makes it better because it did have a chance to be fleshed out.
Yes,
And I think
yeah.
I don't know if he knew that when he made this one.
Mm.
But I mean, it is much more open at the end, which I liked.
Yes. I don't know. To me, overall, what I liked best about this has a better blend of the humor and the horror than the first two.
Yes.
I think this is a much better blend, and I think that's more the Goosebumps style. And like I think that comes out a little bit more than I think you think it does in Stay Out of the Basement. But I think definitely it's very clear in Monster Blood. That's a
I
great
like
blend.
Andy.
I love Andy. You know, the two kids, Evan and Andy, absolutely love them. But
I like Andy.
yeah, they're.
She's great.
She's really good. I think that's what makes this one great. And Monster Blood is while staying with his weird great aunt Catherine, Evan visits a funky old toy store and buys a dusty can of Monster Blood. It's fun to play with at first, and Evan's dog Trigger, who I kept wanting to call Tigger for some reason, likes it so much he eats some as a dog
it's like
would.
you.
Yes.
It's like you would.
But then Evan notices something weird about the green slimy stuff. It keeps growing and growing and growing. It's horny. And all that growing has given the Monster Blood a monstrous appetite. So it's in a way it almost feels like sort of like a 50s sci-fi like plot
It does
line,
have a very,
but it doesn't
like-
come across that way. It
No.
takes that kind of like a classic thing and turns it into something interesting. And to me, I think it has a much more exciting, frantic feeling. The other ones, there's a lot of
Yes.
it really like kind of like keeps you reading faster. Like I think I finished reading it physically faster than I did the first two because it had that pacing, that feeling. But I do think in some ways it's kind of be missing that true terror element. Like I didn't find it as horrifying as the first two. You know what I mean? Like it
I
wasn't.
don't think it has to be.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't
I
have
don't
to
think
be.
there's-
I'm not saying it's a negative. I'm just saying it in comparison to the first two. I don't see it as a negative because the vibe is a bit different. But
I don't
just
know.
in comparison.
I think
so.
there are some elements, some more passively horrifying
Yeah.
things about all of these that wouldn't be in like a Stephen King novel.
Yes, yeah.
It's much more of a passive, like you have to think
But
about this.
I think the difference between this and the first two, I think you could have a Stephen King adult version of these very
Yes.
easily. I think it would be much harder to pull that off here and make it work because it has much more of that, not child appropriate, but it's much more of a passive terror. It's not really like, you know.
I think if you
It's very
made this
different.
into an adult film or book, you would have to follow Catherine.
Yes.
You'd have to follow
yes,
his
yeah.
great aunt Catherine,
Yeah, a little
and
more.
not
Yeah,
him.
from that perspective. Yeah. Mhm.
But I really liked the Nintendo. I
I
thought
lo-
that was
yes.
weird.
All the iconic, some of the terminology, and not just the technology that's present, but the terminology used to refer to that
And they
technology
didn't even
in
have a
certain things.
Nintendo.
Yeah, talking about the video store and what great aunt doesn't even have a VCR and things like that.
Yeah.
Very much of the times, and that's one thing about the writing that I think is done perfectly. And you noticed, I didn't notice at first. You noticed how they're all 12, like the main
Yes.
character is 12. And they usually have a sibling or a friend who's the same age or
Who-
about a year apart.
11-ish.
11 to 13. And the way it's written, everything is very much from the perspective, written well from that perspective. Like, even most adults are either Mr. or Mrs. or mom and dad or my aunt, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really, when they're referred to, it's within, outside of the context of the child referring to that person, it's still, you don't learn their first name a lot of the time, adults.
Yeah.
It feels like the writing and the perspective is done very much like a child. Like, he really, I think, tuned into his inner child and did it really well. And the way everything, it really feels like a child's perspective and what they would think and how they would view the world in a realistic sense, kind of in the way that, something like The Goonies does really well.
Yeah.
Versus a lot of times when adults write kids, they don't write kids the way kids actually are.
Oh
I
yeah,
think it's
no,
a-
an
oh,
adult,
well.
like I feel like an adult would have gotten the parents or called the police with those like
Yeah.
sociopath children.
Yeah.
And everybody, did you have sociopath children in your neighborhood? We definitely did.
Yeah.
We had two brothers that were like these boys. in
Yeah.
this.
Just like that.
They
Yeah.
were, we called them the blockheads because they were
blockheads.
blockheads, and they were horrible human beings, and they're probably in jail now. But I feel like every neighborhood had those kids.
Yeah.
Like I really identified
Yeah.
with that. Those
I think,
horrible kids.
to me, I don't know about you, but for me, what kept this from being higher, like a 9 out of 10, which 10 out of 10, I don't know if anything's going to get that. It's going to be pretty tough. But even a 9 out of 10, there's one little element that kept me from, at the end, I won't explain who this person is because I don't want to spoil it. Try to be not 100% spoiler-free in these reviews, but try to keep a little bit in case you want to revisit them. And because I've forgotten about that element at the end. With
Yes.
Sarah Beth. I totally didn't remember that at all from being a kid.
I don't know if I read
It's been
this
20
one.
years since I read this, but I mean, I know I read them all as a kid, but it's been 20 years.
I don't know that I read all of them.
So did that in any way even kind of surprise you a little bit? Like what, I mean, the element to me that made it kind of a negative without giving it away was there wasn't 100% clear who she was and what her motivation was. What she did was very clear, how she did it, but it's not necessarily like, I feel like there's like another story. I mean, there's more Monster Blood books, but I don't know if that was planned at the time, but to me, at the end, it felt like there was another 20, 30 pages that,
Well, I mean, I think, again,
from a kid's perspective,
from a
might
kid's
not think of that
perspective,
as,
you wouldn't necessarily think about that. From
Yeah.
an adult's perspective, I feel like I would want to hear Catherine's story,
Yes.
and this would become clear.
Yeah.
All of this would be clear at
yeah.
that point.
Yeah. Just
But
to me, but like, I don't know.
think, I think you definitely know there's going to be a sequel, or there was a planned sequel.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely would want to know more.
Yeah.
I think
But
she's
that was the
more of
one-
an interesting character than some of the other ones.
So that was one thing. I think that reveal of that character could have been done a little bit earlier, and there could have been a little more fleshed out, because it really is very much like, it's not 100% out of nowhere, but it's at just the very end. Like, it feels almost a little
And
rushed.
you really don't know what was originally written. I mean, maybe
Yes,
his
yeah.
manuscript had Monster Blood 1 and 2 as one thing.
Yeah, and they are all
And-
within like 3 or 4 pages of each other, the length of the books mostly.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, it's
think
very
1 or 2
possible
of the
that
series are
he
longer, but
fleshed this
Yeah.
out more.
yeah.
It's very possible that 1 and 2 were one book,
Yeah.
and he just didn't have as much information
Yeah.
in these. I mean, you really can't do anything but speculate as to, especially the earlier ones, because I think at that point you're kind of at the mercy of
Yeah.
whoever's in charge of you and hoping that they'll let you publish
Yeah, I don't know.
more.
But that was the one kind of negative. Like, to me, definitely, I think Monster Blood is the most entertaining.
Oh.
I found Stay Out of the Basement to be the most horrifying. Of
No.
the 3, I know you disagree completely. You
No,
probably think
this
the first
is
one.
absolutely horrifying.
I just thought it
This
was
is
okay.
horrifying.
I thought it was okay.
And when the nice girl screams "thank you,"
Yeah, I don't
her
know.
face is melting.
To me, it was very much.
That's horrible.
I'm much
It's
more.
nightmares. And Petey?
I don't know. To me,
Petey?
yeah.
It's like the little rascal.
I found it more horrifying in the beginning. See, I don't necessarily like horror as much when it's in your face, like horrifying. To me, the building, the suspense, and the mystery. That's what's horrifying, and the little bit of a sci-fi twist that makes it a little better for me. Like, I don't know, that kind of like helps. But to me, that is the more horrifying thing. Like, I'm very much of the school of thought of the Alfred Hitchcock. Like, you never let the audience see the bomb go off, or you never even let the bomb go off. You know what I mean? That mentality, that the true emotion and heart is in like waiting for it to go off. When it goes off, you lose it. It's gone. It's gone, and you never lose that suspension if you never see it go off or you never let it go off. Like, that continues even past that.
But
like, to me, I think it gets a little better.
You always like the more sweeping epic, whereas I like the campfire story.
Yeah, and this feels more like a campfire story. I like the
story you tell around the campfire that you pass on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And that's this story.
Yeah, I don't know. I found it more. I found this more curious and more fascinating into what it is about the dad, you know, as a botanist trying to create a new form of like plant life, and an accident happens and it goes out of control. And like, that's interesting to me. More interesting than just more interesting to me than like the dead town, or of like the goo with a spell on it.
But did you like that as much as a child?
Yes.
Because I feel like a lot of this.
Yes.
My opinions have changed as an adult.
So far, they haven't. Mine haven't. What I remember, there are certain ones, because it's been like 20 years and there's so many of them.
I can't believe it's been 20 years.
Yeah. But to me, there are roughly, I won't spoil which ones they are now, maybe I'll talk about it as we go along, but there are about 10 or 12 or so that I very distinctly remember liking, and I remember their plots. And the other ones where I kind of remember that, you know, I don't remember much about it. But this is one of those like 10 or 12.
No, I do remember this
that
one.
I very distinctly remember, and I remember liking, and so far, it's my favorite so far.
I remember this one. And it's funny because this is the one, because we've been collecting these for a while, and we have more of this one than any other one. So they either made like a huge print run of this, or I'm not quite sure, but this one, I really liked this one, but it's not.
Yeah,
it doesn't hold
so far,
up. It's my least favorite.
To me, I like it. But anyway, so those are our thoughts on the first three here.
What do you think?
Yeah, keep joining us back for this whole month of Goosebumps stuff, and they won't all be quite this lengthy. We wanted to get a few more out, you know, and because there's only so many days and a lot of Goosebumps and other stuff to talk about. But again, let us know what you think of these books if you remember reading them, and hopefully, if you haven't, maybe this series will get you to read them. But out of these three, what is your favorite? I'm actually really curious this time out of the three, because we totally disagree. This round, it'll be interesting to see going on as we film these and reread these, what we think. But yeah, overall, so far my favorite, Stay Out of the Basement, as we go along here. So far, Monster Blood. But yeah, welcome to the month-long 31 days of Goosebumps this October, and hopefully you have fun with us.